Taping right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just have like a conversation back and forth. It's Grant Cameron, and I have my friend Sinead Whelehan here, and we're going to talk about a bizarre event that happened today. Actually, a couple of bizarre events. And you asked me what my reaction was when I saw the email. My first reaction was, "Oh, come on! Nobody's going to believe this ever happened." It was just. Because you and I, as we've discussed in a previous video, you and I have had some pretty bizarre synchronicities.
Yes, we have.
And this one today was just, I mean, it almost took the cake. Do you want to tell the story of what we had a conversation last night where we sort of were talking about being sort of overwhelmed with messages going back and forth and trying to keep things straight and stuff. So you sent me did you intend that this morning? You sent me that Bob Marley song this morning. Did you intend that to be a message from last night?
Well, okay, if we're I don't even know where to start. This is just so funny. Okay, so background for people who don't have a clue what we're talking about. So first of all, yeah, so I contacted you a couple of times in the last couple of days and just said, I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed because we've had so much communication every day. We're in touch and sending messages back and forth and sharing ideas and things we want to do and things that we connect on and just all this great stuff. But I also have a full-time job and I've been totally overwhelmed with trying to keep up with both. And so I was sharing that with you. And then you went, yeah, I was kind of trying to talk it out with you a bit and just say, you know, this is what's happening for me. And I think I need to get a grip on this by getting more organized. And I need to go back through all of our emails and I have to put it into categories and, you know, figure out what's going where, because it's just like this gigantic pile of emails and I don't know what to do with it all. And then you went for a long walk. And I think you should, no, was that today that you went for your long walk?
No, last night, right after we had the conversation.
Yeah, so, okay.
I go for the walk.
I sent you the song after you went for the long walk. So why don't you talk about the long walk first, and then I'll explain about the song.
So what I got during this long walk, because you were talking about this sort of being overwhelmed and stuff. And then I was, during the walk, and that's where I usually get sort of my downloads. I'm listening to an audio book from Dr. Michael Newton. And then so I'm listening to it, and then all of a sudden I realized like I'm not really listening to it anymore. And this sort of message is coming in my head, and it's basically about be in the here, be in the now. You know, the idea where your ego wants you to make lists and it wants you to, you know, be in the physical world and stuff. And sort of this concept about be in the now. Control the sort of the left brain that's sort of telling you the ego that wants to pull you away from this, and the idea that you and I had both shared before. We have both had known this famous expression by Bashar about living in the moment of excitement. You take the moment of excitement, what it is, live it, then check again in 10 minutes or whatever. What is it? And so I had discussed with you when I came back about these sort of messages that had come to me about living in the here, the now, the excitement and stuff like that, and not to worry about the messages, whatever messages I had sent, and not to worry about them, that if we're on the right path and doing interviews or whatever we're supposed to be doing, it'll all happen. And then, so then this morning when I saw the song that came, it's going to be all right, it was the same sort of message. That's why I was wondering, this Bob Marley song, whether you had intended this to be an extension, because that's what I saw. I said, oh, that's exactly the message.
I totally intended it to be an extension. But the funny thing is that, so I told you I was feeling overwhelmed, then you went for your long walk, then you got this download about Bashar, and I have the Bashar thing about following your excitement on my refrigerator, and I sent you a picture of that. And then I felt better after we talked. I just felt like, okay, I don't have to stay on top of millions of emails and have everything totally organized. And you were right that it was ego. It was my ego just trying to make me feel better by getting control, you know, by organizing all of the information we've been exchanging through email into categories. So anyway, so you were right about that, and I felt better. And then we finished our call, and then I just love Bob Marley. I mean, I think his music has a really, really high vibration and always makes me feel joy. And so I heard in my head after we stopped the conversation, I heard everything was going to be all right. But what I did wrong was I was in a hurry to get to bed. I was really tired. It was late. I had a very full day today at work. And so I was in a hurry to get to bed. So I didn't actually pay enough attention to being accurate to what the song was. And so there are two songs where he says everything's going to be all right.
And
One of the songs
I didn't know that until today. I didn't know that until this
oh,
thing happened. I didn't know there was two songs. Okay, go ahead.
okay, so I got them completely mixed up, and I sent you. I think it's actually called "Everything's Gonna Be All Right." So I sent you that one, and then I went to bed. And then I had a funny experience this morning when I was waking up. But you got the song this morning when you woke up, and then we talked again today because I shared with you this strange thing that happened this morning, and then I realized as I was leaving work to come home that I sent you the wrong song, and it's actually Three Little Birds, and you already know I have this thing about threes. And there's a what is it? Is it the chorus in the song that says sending messages of pure joy or something like that? I'm sending a message to you, and it's Three Little Birds, and everything's going to be all right. It was much more in line with what you had said, what the download you had gotten. And so I was like, oh, no, that's actually the right song. And so I sent it to you. And then you sent the same song to me before even seeing my email for the same reason.
Yeah, I had gotten, as I told you, I'd gotten Bob Marley because I'm a big Bob Marley fan as well. And I've been to the Caribbean, and, you know, I've been around the atmosphere of actually people playing on the you know, outside the cruise ships and stuff like that. And I really like it. So then I saw it. I got Bob Marley in my head, and I can't get this song. It's going to be all right in my head. So what I always do is, because I did the book Tuned In, The Paranormal World of Music, I always want to look at, so where did the song come from? Where did he get it? I mean, did he get it in a dream? Did he, you know? So I go to It'll Be All Right, Bob Marley, and I look on Song Facts, is what I use. It gives you the background of the story, how they composed it, and this sort of stuff, and you find these little weird stories about where the song actually came from. So I started to check that, and I also sent you an email because I know a lot of weird music stories, and I sent you the story about Lee Scratch Perry, who invented dub music, which became reggae music, and he was a producer for Bob Marley, and he believed he was an extraterrestrial. And he believed he wasn't from this planet, and he was running around gathering people's brains, and the spirit was telling him what to do. And so it's this very famous guy. So I sent you that song, and I sent you a song that Bob Marley's grandson had done about UFOs. And all these weird stories from Bob Marley and UFOs. So when I was doing it was when I was doing the song fact check, and I'm checking all this Bob Marley because I'm into this Bob Marley thing, and I'm checking all this stuff, and then suddenly I see this Three Little Birds. And I'm going like, that's kind of weird. And it's like, and then I realized like, that's not the same song she's saying. That's not the same song. So I clipped a little part about the Three Little Birds because the whole story is that he got the idea for the song by these birds that sit on his porch all the time. And there's a biblical passage where Jesus says, you know, you worry about stuff, look at the birds. They neither weave nor they gather, and yet God takes care of them. And this passage about the birds, that the birds are okay, you're going to be okay. And so this Bob Marley's playing off this thing, this biblical passage about the birds are okay, so you're going to be okay. Don't worry about it.
I had no idea about any of that. That's very neat.
And so then I sent you the song, and I didn't even know it was a different song. I just sent the song. I thought it was the same song you'd sent and I clipped the lyrics out with about the birds. And he's singing about the birds on his porch, and then he goes into the chorus, it's going to be all right, it's going to be all right, and stuff like that. And I sent it to you, and then you sent me the email and said, check your email. And then I go check the email, saying, and then when I saw the song, The Three Little Birds, and that's when I said, nobody's going to believe this. That at the same time, that's the same thing we had that synchronicity with the 333. They happened at the same time. I sent you a message, and you sent me a message, and neither of us had seen the message. And when we opened the message, it was the same message. It was just like, and when you get those powerful things, that's where I mentioned we were talking about synchronicities last night, which is not on this tape, but we talked about synchronicities where I've said, I didn't have a lot of paranormal experiences in my life, but I did have these sort of noetic download experiences. And in the last couple of years, I've had synchronicities that I think would match anybody's weird synchronicities. And you and I have had just a series of these just in the last couple of weeks. And that's when I said we should tape this, because I just looked at it and I said, nobody is going to believe this. It was
Mhm.
just so weird. I'm looking at it, I couldn't believe
It's
that.
too timely. It's just too timely. And you know, we, like, as we've already talked about, we just keep getting more confirmation that
Yeah,
there's a reason why we've gotten in touch. There's a reason why we're starting to work together. Like, this is, it's just more confirmation of that.
yeah,
And I also think that, you know, we have to give some gratitude to Bob Marley, because he was a special human being, and his music is really something. Every single time I listen to it, since I first discovered it as a young person, it just makes me feel joy. It automatically raises my vibration just right away, and I feel happy.
mhm.
And it's fun that, you know, I just sent you this one song, like, just thinking, oh, this kind of matches the download you got, and then both of us spent the whole day listening to Bob Marley. I have to drive around for my job,
Yeah.
and I was listening to Bob Marley. That's all I listened to all day. I mean, it's just so funny. It really is.
Yeah, and it's in, and you get also, you mentioned, because you and Annette are going to do this thing, and you were going to do it first on disabilities, and then I added the energy because she mentioned in her last email from England about energy. So is you and this Annette Williamson, who's talking to the three beings, are going to talk about that. But you're mentioning the energy now, and that's where I said I can almost see the Bob Marley thing. You know, have spirits in the other world where they have like a dance party and they got Bob Marley music on, and this does work. If you look at the Mission Rama protocols, or when they're doing these C5 things, they will play music, but the Mission Rama people will do chanting and oming, and they do it for like hours and hours, and you're sitting there, and it's actually very cold, and you're sitting there, and I always thought this is like, yeah, it's kind of hocus pocus stuff and whatever, and they always said it was to raise the vibration. And I don't know if you know this story. I was there last August when this event takes place, and so what happens is they're using, instead of music, like seances will use music to raise the vibration for a seance. And some
Mhm.
of them will use like ZZ Top and things like this, like really bizarre country and Western music to raise the vibration. And the Mission Rama, I thought it was this hocus pocus thing about raising the vibration. So what happened was we were there, and they were doing this oming and mantras, and it was going on and on for an hour and a half or whatever. And then one guy had gotten a message with these triangles that talked about this tree that had fallen over on the mountain. And so they were listening to him because they realized he was getting some sort of download. And they had the idea it was going to happen about midnight. It's going to happen higher up on the mountain on this. I can't remember what the name of the thing was. They actually had the name of it. And so this older guy, he's running up the mountain, and they're all trying to keep up to him. But as they were leaving, so the group, there was the circle was all there. And we'll talk in a minute about the circle. So the circle is all there of all the people sitting around doing this meditation and oming and mantras and stuff like that. And then Enrique Villanueva, who's running the circle, the Peruvian guy, stands up and says, okay, it's time to go, because we got to go up on the mountain. So what happens is this group of people, all sort of in a circle, all break up, and half of them leave, and all the meditation, all the oming, all the mantras stop. It's complete quiet, and people are just sitting there. And these people are there, and they're in cars, and they're driving out, and it just broke everything. And so what they have is they have what's called a crystal ceremony, where they do this crystal ceremony where you go into this. They have a circle, and just before they had left to break to go up to the top of the mountain, they had found this circle. So they moved the people 6 at a time to this circle, and they do this thing where the beings put these crystals in your hand, and then you put them over your heart, and it makes you more psychic, and it links you in with them. It's a sort of like a protocol that Mission Rama has been doing since 1974, that they say was taught to them by the beings. So anyway, they found the circle, I know, because I could see them outside, and they found this circle with high energy, and
Mhm.
it was being developed they say it was being developed by the circle, but I didn't really believe that. So when this thing broke up, all these cars and there's lights and stuff, and we're all just sitting there, and there's no more mantras or anything. They take off. They're going up to the top of the mountain. So there's maybe half the people left. The rest of us are waiting for the crystal ceremony. So then they come back and they say, okay, start meditating, get a smaller circle, start meditating, doing the mantras and the ohms. And I could see the girls that were running it. They had these girls who were going to conduct this ceremony, and they're walking around the edge of the circle, and I'm going, what's going on? Why aren't they sitting down? Like, why are they walking? And it was Kim, who I'd introduced you from Michigan. She had a white hoodie on. So she's walking around. I could see Kim, and I'm going, why is Kim not sitting down? Like, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden they stopped it and they said, can you pick up the as much as you can? We've lost the energy in the circle. As soon as this thing broke up, the energy dropped in the circle to almost nothing. And they said, let's see if we can raise the energy in the circle again. So people they're doing the mantra, and they got a crystal bowl, and they're doing all this kind of stuff. And in the end, they couldn't raise the vibration. They could raise it a little bit, but they couldn't raise the vibration. So for the first time, there was no crystal ceremony. And so then they came back from the mountain, and they had this experience up on the mountain, which I won't get into, but they come down and they said, oh, we feel sorry for you. And I said, no, actually, that was one of the best lessons I've ever learned in my life. I actually realized there was something to this meditation. There was something to this vibration thing. So when you're talking about the Bob Marley thing, this is true. I mean, the beings music may be something to raise your vibration, the same as the lyrics may be it, and it's all vibration.
Totally.
People are getting this music in the other world, and they'll describe it not really as music, but as vibration, like the most beautiful music they've ever heard, but they'll describe it in terms of vibration. So vibration, I think, is very important. And you've experienced this in your download experience, this sort of energy and the vibration and stuff. And now the beings are talking about it. So I think it'll be important when you and Annette actually talk about this.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think, our bodies are instruments, right? Our bodies are instruments, and our energy fields are vibrating because they're made of energy. So, I mean, music is vibration. Like it all is interconnected. Yeah. And music has been a very big thing for me too. Even though I'm a deaf person, like I don't have full access to music, but it's been a big thing for me. And I think part of it is that it's because of how it makes me feel. It's like it opens a door. It opens a doorway energetically to let other stuff come in, right? But you have to get into the zone. Like if you're not in the zone, if you don't maintain that connection with yourself and that sense of being tuned in, any way that it works for you, and for me, one of the ways that it works is music, then you're losing an opportunity to connect. And so music is incredibly powerful that way. And you know that. I mean, you've written books on how the extraordinary number of musicians that have been able to have contact because of their creative channeling, really, right? Yeah.
Can I ask you, like with people who are profoundly deaf, can they could hear the vibration of music? I mean, if you're playing music, even though they can't hear it, they can still feel the vibration of music?
Well, I'm not a typical deaf person in the sense that this is a whole other story that you and I are going to talk about at some point in a recorded interview, but to kind of keep it short and sweet for now, there's many different kinds of hearing loss, right? Like there's many different kinds of deafness, and people typically think that being deaf that a deaf person is somebody who hears absolutely nothing and can't speak or doesn't speak and uses sign language, and that's a deaf person, right? Mm-hmm. But I have a 90% hearing loss. Like I have a severe, profound hearing loss, and so technically I am a deaf person. So if you're thinking about the typical, this sort of general understanding of what a deaf person is, being somebody who does not use hearing aids. I have 2 cochlear implants, right? So the typical idea of a deaf person, they would not have cochlear implants, they would not have hearing aids, they'd be living in a silent world. Then they don't have access to sound, but sound is a vibration. So there are such a thing as classes, music classes kind of for deaf people that have to do with a sensory experience of music, like a physical sensory experience of music. And it involves vibration, it involves rhythm, and it still is a form of receiving, right? Like you can still receive that way. So even though you might not be able to access all the tones and the notes or voices that are singing, or identify different kinds of instruments or hear instruments at all, you can benefit from the vibration for sure. I mean, I think vibration is used in healing all the time. Yeah. Right? Vibration is used as a healing methodology. So that's something a deaf person could experience whether they can hear anything or not.
Yeah. And that would be the same with blind people, where they have this unbelievable ability, a lot of them, to pick up on music, where it's the vibration thing again, where they'll be completely unable to do anything, and then suddenly they meet music and it becomes a part of their life, and they're very good at it. Or you even get the idea with, the other world, where there's this sort of vibration aspect of the thing. Or people say, your sense of reality is determined by whatever frequency you're tuned into. And the
Yes.
idea that it's all frequency, it's all
Yes.
vibration. And that
Yes.
we interpret it as color, but there really is no color. It's just that's a vibration of a electromagnetic frequency, and there really is no physical world. It's all frequency. It's all, this electromagnetic waves. So I think
Mhm.
we're sort of onto, this thing, how you fit the synchronicities. How do you see synchronicities? I have my opinion, but I'm basing mine upon basically what you hear from the spirit world. But what is your, when you have these synchronicities, what do you interpret as going on?
It's always a message. Always. It's always a message.
But
And
in terms of the weirdness, I mean, because you'd say it's a message, but you would think it would be a straight message. It's this weird sort of, this is impossible. This couldn't possibly have happened that way. How do you get the weirdness figured out? Because my impression was, and they'd say, well, your spirit guides are doing meaningful things
Mhm.
to you
Mhm.
to keep your attention, to move you in the right direction.
Oh boy. The weird, when you say weirdness, do you mean the weirdness that is happening at all? Like,
Yeah, but it's not an ordinary message. It's not like they give you a message in your dream or whatever. It's very simple. It comes with this really, like what happened today. It was just this. My first impression was like, oh, get out of here. Nobody's going to believe this. It was just so weird. It was just,
yeah.
and it's not like a message. Like you sent me a message. It was this weird way the message came where that's all you can think about for the next couple of days. You're going like, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not weird because for me, I'm used to this, right? Like I'm not used to it happening with somebody. Like we've only known each other for a month so
Yeah.
far, and a huge amount has happened, right? So
Yeah.
that doesn't happen all the time. But I've had synchronicities happen a lot in my life, and I just know it's part of how they communicate with me, right? It's part of them
And
saying,
who's they? Your spirit guides?
that's what I call them because I don't know what else to call
Okay.
them. Like, it's not like they've appeared in front of me and said, hello, my name is,
Yeah.
like
Somebody above us.
that's not happening. Yeah. But they're incredibly responsive. And so if there's different ways that it happens. One way that it happens is that I ask them to be there for me, which, just happened very recently, right? Like yesterday, the day before, I was not feeling very tuned in and I was feeling anxious and feeling overwhelmed. And I talked to you about all of that. And then I asked them for reassurance, and they always respond incredibly quickly. Like almost they either respond immediately or they respond the next day, and that's happened. The response time has shortened. The more I get tuned in, the more I'm listening to them, and the more I'm saying, okay, I believe now that you're there. I mean, they didn't give me a choice. Like 7 months ago in the summer, they made their presence known extremely firmly and basically said to me, you cannot ignore this anymore. Like now the time has come for you to stop dismissing this part of yourself and dismissing that these things happen to you and doubting yourself and not believing that this is real. This is real. Yeah. And so I really, really got that clearly. And then I've just been getting evidence after evidence after evidence. I mean, it's just been an incredibly ongoing experience of repeated, innumerable confirmations. So the synchronicity thing overall is, to me, I think it has a few levels for me. It's them saying, we're here with you. We see you, we know, we're paying attention to you. We're with you. We're by your side. Right. So part of it is that. Part of it is them saying, this is a part of yourself you're not paying attention to. And this is a little doorway to another understanding of reality that you are. It's like they're knocking on my door. It's like they're knocking on my door and they're saying, open the door. Like all you have to do is open the door and you're going to see something completely different. Yeah. And the more I've done that, the more I've answered the door, the more the door remains open. And then there's just this flow of whatever. Yeah. So I think it's them making their presence known in my life. It's them saying, we're always with you. We're always here for you. It's them saying, you need to pay attention to yourself and validate your experience and grow it and nurture it. And the more I've done that, the more synchronicity happens. But it's also them just being incredibly kind and generous and, you know, just really kind and loving. Like they've literally made things happen, like actual physical things happen in my life. And it's their support and their love. That's really what it is. And then the pattern, the synchronicity is a pattern, right? So I think it's also about, patterning is about interconnectivity. And so I think that when synchronicity occurs, it's a pattern that they're reminding me everything is connected, and it's like a river flowing endlessly, and you need to be flowing with that river, you know. So I finally get that, and my God, I mean, the number of things that are happening is just extraordinary, you know. So this is one of them, you know. Meeting you is one of them. Our connection is one of them. The stupid number of things we have in common, the fact that we have similar priorities, and then all this synchronicity stuff is just confirming. It's confirming. And the fact that it's happening to both of us, not just me, right? Like it's happening to us both at the same time without either of us knowing that it's occurring. And then we tell each other, oh, this thing happened. And then we realize, oh my God, the same thing happened at the same time. That's also very, very confirming, because it means that they know what's happening here, right? They know that we're communicating, they know about our conversations, and that this is right, that this is supposed to be happening, that we're supposed to be having this conversation, and we're supposed to be talking about these things and doing this work. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, because we're going to talk about it in a second, the lights on the craft, and this links into, so I've got, when I had the thing, so to me, it's a little more in the message, because I got the message last night, and I showed you my little piece of paper. I had this little tiny piece of paper this big, and I'm trying to write all this stuff that's coming into my head, but I got a lot of stories in my head. So I figure, well, maybe it's just the stories are linking and it pulls these stories or whatever. But the weirdness of this thing today, because I do a lecture called The Theory of Wow. And that was, to me, the thing was, when you do the synchronicity, you go, wow. Like, I mean, that makes the point. This is the point that was in my download, but it makes it's like, you're never going to forget this story. It was just so almost like hitting you over the head. And that's where, so you had a dream last night, and it goes to this whole idea about lights. So what I always say, I do a lecture called The Theory of Wow. And I say, maybe what they're doing is really nothing. They put lights on the craft to get your attention. They do crop circles to get your attention. They do synchronicities to get your attention. They do cattle mutilations to give a message to get your attention. They're doing all this stuff, and maybe they're really not doing anything. They're just raising consciousness. So you had an experience that had to do with lights, and maybe you can explain it, and then I'll give you my sort of take on what happened.
Sure. So, so one of the things that you said last night, that I actually forgot to act on because I was tired and heading to bed as quickly as I could. One of the things you said when we talked last night was, you said, because I was telling you about this dream that I've had repeatedly over and over and over again for 20 years that's incredibly intense, and that I now realize is a message and has to do with this work we're doing together, right?
Yeah.
So I was telling you about this dream, and I said the annoying thing is that in the dream, I say specific things that I really wish that I could remember. I know when I wake up, I'm like, oh, I wish I could remember how I phrased that. Like, I just phrased it so well, and it was so articulate and made so much sense, and it was just so clean, and it felt right, you know, like it felt like the right words in the right order to express the right feeling or the right vibration. And so you said, well, keep a pad of paper next to your bed, and then when you wake up in the morning, and you specifically said, you know, when you wake up and you're in that in-between stage where you haven't completely fully woken up yet, you're still somewhat asleep, you still have the opportunity to remember what you dreamt, and then grab the pen, even if you're half asleep, and just scroll down whatever you can remember that you said in your dream. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And then I didn't put the pad of paper next to my bed. I was just tired. Yeah. But the funny thing is that I had an experience like that this morning. So all this stuff that's been happening to me over the past 7 months is so enormous that it's practically all I think about. And so I have to just keep redirecting myself to, you know, real life and my job and everything, which is important to me too. but anyway, it's especially since getting into the zone of all of this through conversations with you and with other people who have become very important in my life, who are also part of this world and who I'm in touch with often as well. It means that I'm thinking about this stuff all the time. And so it's the last thing I think about before I go to bed. And it's the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning. But I'm not really recording any of it. It's just like marinating, you know, in my field. And so I heard you talking, you know, I took that in about the in-between space between sleeping and waking. And I made a note of that. And I thought, okay, I have to act on that. And I generally don't remember my dreams. Like, I really don't remember my dreams. But last night I had a lot of dreams, and it was all about this community of people that we're connected to, and these wonderful people, you know, who really believe in what we believe in, like raising consciousness, raising vibration, spreading love, helping people get attuned to themselves and working on themselves personally, and having that as an ongoing practice so that we can help not only ourselves, but others and other beings, animals included, and the planet, right? And so I dreamt about that a lot last night. And then what happened when I woke up was I was in this I just felt really good. I was in this sort of pleasant space of imagining that I was at Shasta, where I've never been, but I'm going to be going this year. And so I was imagining myself at Shasta, and in the visualization, which was very clear, I was seeing this beautiful nature. You know, it's a beautiful setting. So I was seeing beautiful just grass and animals and the mountains. And it was just gorgeous. And then I was thinking of all these people who I really care about and who I connect with, who were there. So in the visualization, I go up to this circle of people who are sitting in a circle, kind of in lawn chairs, as if they're about to do a meditation or about to do a CE5, but they're not. They're just enjoying being with each other. And there's this really wonderful vibe of connectivity and positivity and care for one another, and it's just really nice vibration. So in the visualization, I go up to this circle of people, many of whom I know in real life. And I kind of get to the edge of the circle. And when I get to the edge of the circle, I just stop and I just take a moment and look at everyone in the circle, and everyone's sort of looking back at me and smiling. And then I just have this realization, because of the circle, maybe because of the location, I don't know, because I've never been to Shasta before, but definitely because of the vibration and the feeling of connectedness that was there. I suddenly realized, it felt like a realization, this is a UFO. This right now, this circle, this is a UFO. And that thought just made perfect sense to me. And I'm still digesting it because it only just happened this morning, but it makes perfect sense to me on a number of levels. I mean, there's a lot of conversation in the UFO community about how UFOs are consciousness, as well as I believe they're also probably physical craft, but I think it's both. But there's so many stories about people being able to fly these machines, or witnessing beings flying these machines with their minds, right? There's no need for a steering wheel or something like that. It just they can control it with their mind. So that's consciousness, right? So I had that thought, and then I thought, oh my God, then I had another thought, that everyone sitting in this formulation of chairs around in this circle like this, that made me think of how often people see these lights around the circumference of a UFO. And I suddenly, and again, this felt like a realization, those lights are people, those lights are consciousness. So the UFO itself is a collective consciousness, but each individual light is a live individual consciousness that is taking part in this collective consciousness. And I really felt like that made sense too. And then I got this feeling that is, I can't really verbalize it, but it's a feeling I get from my guides that I've had for years and years, decades, which is a yes, like a confirmation, like a validating kind of feeling that makes me just feel like that's true, that it's a knowledge piece. It's not just some idea, that it's actual, it's knowledge. And so I woke up feeling, wow, okay, that really feels like something. And then I just was brushing my teeth and thinking about it. I was getting dressed and thinking about it and making my coffee and thinking about it. And I just really feel like there's something to that. And I've never had that thought before. That to me is new. That's a new thought.
Mhm.
So I wanted to hear what you thought about that too.
I'll still have to think about it. The way I sort of see that majority of the stuff they're going to give you in that state, or in the sort of the right brain state, the female state, is like imagery. So I think you've had triangles. You've got this thing with triangles.
Oh,
The
yes.
triangles fits in as well. Like, for example, I say, when you look at the theory of wow, you'll have people who will find triangles on their arms. And it's like, they don't have to put triangles on your arm. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, why'd they do it? Because you look at it and you go, oh no, that wasn't a dream. And so they're using these symbols like the triangle, and you're going to have this conversation with Annette, and
Mhm.
she's got the triangle thing as well, with the symbol of the triangle. So this is this big thing that they're using all these different symbols. And you saw the things they told her, write down the 6 symbols. Remember, write down the 6 symbols, and she quickly wrote them down. And they have these ideas where, for us, it's just a triangle, but for them, a circle is more than a circle, and a triangle is more than a triangle, and it has these higher spiritual meanings. And the idea may be that the consciousness is making up the craft, because not all crafts are circular. The one I saw it was like a plasma craft, and it would look like it was alive. It was pulsing. It was just sort of like just pulsing. It was red, and it was just pulsing, moving very, very slowly. And as I pointed out, if you saw the from 1890, they seem to be able to, there's an idea that what they do is they use your consciousness, and they bend and mold things out of your consciousness. So in 1896, people were seeing wooden ships with propellers on them, and guys hanging off ropes that said they were from Mars, and they're wearing these weird clothes that were outdated and stuff like that. And so it's like they're using your thing to give you an impression. So they keep changing the phenomena. The flying saucers keep changing in the way they look. And yet there's what you're referring to, I think is true, is this idea that they're saying to you, the imagery, that it's all one, that the people are making up the craft. It's all this idea. It's more like to me, it'd be more like an imagery thing, but still the point they're making, that the people in the circle are forming the craft, that it's all, because when you come down to the craft, everything in the universe, and that's one download I got, was the idea, is it made out of nuts and bolts, or is it made out of consciousness? And everybody wants to separate it. So they say there's consciousness, and then there's material, physical world. Well, no, it's all consciousness.
It's all consciousness, yeah. And I really think that, the reason why I think it's also physical is we know, I mean, after all the work you've done, that there have been actual physical crafts that have been
But it's still made out of consciousness. It's still just sort of like condensed consciousness. And when you sort of uncondense it, but it's still made out of consciousness. So there is no real physical world. It's all, even the idea that what you see is not what's there. It's even the quantum idea that nothing appears until you actually break down the quantum wave potential, that when there's an observer, the particle takes a position in time and space. Until then, there is not even a particle there. So sort of like consciousness is everything. And so, and it's just, to me, it's just a technical thing where people say, okay, there's consciousness and then there's physical, because then they can say, okay, Sinead is a physical body, and she's got this consciousness that comes into her head. Well, no, it's all consciousness.
Okay. Yeah.
And they want to sort of separate one from the other, whereas it's all built. It's so like the one quantum physicist said, it's all ooly stuff. You have to realize that from the beginning. It's all the same stuff. It's all ooly. So it's this, and when you get to the messages that you're getting, they're much more elaborate than just a saucer or whatever. You'll get different levels that, as you go along, you'll realize, oh, it means this as well. It means this. And that's what I found from my experience. The very basic one I had in 2012 was just basically, it's consciousness. And I thought, oh, okay, it's all consciousness. And then suddenly I realized, no, they weren't talking about consciousness. They were talking about non-local consciousness. There's no time, no space, all that kind of stuff. And the more it's gone along, the more elaborate it's gotten, the idea of consciousness, but it's still the same sort of thing. And it's completely different than what I thought. And you'll see, I think with this image, that when you think about it, the more you think about it, the more things they will have layered inside that vision as to what this actually means.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, what usually happens to me when I have these, when I get these, I don't know what to call them, downloads or whatever. I don't even know what, if there's a technical description of what a download is. All I know is that it's definitely communication.
Yeah.
So when I get this communication, I don't usually share it so quickly.
Yeah.
Because I always need it to sit for a bit. And I often actually have the experience of not being able to verbalize it. Like I literally cannot find words
Well,
to say.
that's part of it. That's where you had the ayahuasca experience that we'll be talking about in a couple of days. But that is, if you look at the seven, I think it's the seven attributes of a mystical experience. One of them is it's ineffable. You can't explain it. That's one of the things. And so when you get into the noetic, the mystical experience, you're going to get oneness. You're going to get ineffable. You're going to get the greatest experience of your life, like this very high level experience that equates to the birth of a child or the death of a parent and this kind of stuff. So I think you're in that field. I call it, I think the more accurate term is this noetic. It's this sort of this, when you're in the field and you get into the mystical thing, you start picking up higher sort of messages, but they're all coming because it's coming through the right brain. It's all going to be imagery. It's not going to be words. It's going to be this sort of imagery, and you got to sit there and you got to try to figure it out. And the more you think about it, the more complex it gets, and the more message there is there.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, I was telling some people who I just went to my first ever CE5 retreat this past October, led by Costa Macraeus, who's such a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And I was telling some people there about what it's like to get these messages, and part of it is that it's not just imagery; it's actually a language. Like it is a language, but it's not a verbal language. But it's really hard to describe because it's not verbal, and at the same time, it is like it's like someone is speaking to me, telling me something, right? But it's landing, instead of coming in through here, it's landing in my body, it's landing in my mind, and then it's just this knowing of what the message is.
Yeah.
But it's really nonverbal, and I mean, I love that because it's all about feeling. I'm very much connected to them via feeling. So ever since this 7 months ago, when I had this when they shoved me towards all of this and said, you know, you don't have a choice, you got to look at this and integrate this with your life, I've been able to maintain in this amazing feeling because the door is now wide open, right? I mean, I am so connected with them, and I really feel them in my life because I've allowed myself to embrace it, and because they didn't give me a choice. It's sort of this partnership that we have, right? That we're agreeing to be together. Yeah, it's really extraordinary.
Yeah. That's where I was talking last night. I was talking about the if you get caught off from the spirit guides, and my idea of contact modalities is that's the left brain that is blocking the signal. The left brain creates all the noise. The right brain picks up the signal, but it's coming in images. And what most people want is they want the aliens to land and make a speech and say, we're here, give us the free energy, and then get the heck out of here. They want a left brain image. But as Bashar says, we come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world. And the world of dreams is imagery. It's right brain. And that's where I was saying last night is if you can keep the signal down, you can pick up the message, but it'll come in a visionary way.
Yeah.
And so often we cut off the message by trying to analyze it, rationalize it, and we all get it because you're in the physical world. And that's the way we've been trained. Take a big object, break into the little pieces and analyze the little pieces and that sort of thing. But this is coming as you're realizing it's coming in sort of a strange way where you can't explain it, and it's all imagery. And the more you think about it, the more it means to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, you know, for me, it's incredibly confirming that the vast majority of the communication I get is during the day. It's when I'm awake. I'm awake. Yeah. Like I'm not in a dream state. I think if I was in a dream state, I would have had a harder time feeling that it was valid.
Yeah.
But it happens directly in front of me, like in real life, so to speak, when I'm awake, right? So I wish that I had more dream communication. Maybe I'm having more than I know that I am, but yeah, anyway, I hear what you're saying. It's just so cool. Like just the whole thing is just so cool.
And I'm glad we did this because I suggested we tape this because this is like a real-time event. So this is not like some story we're telling from last week. And I suggested we do it when it happened, because we're still sort of excited about, like, wow, I mean, this is just bizarre.
We're
And people
following
can
our
sort of
excitement.
understand, and there may be something happens tomorrow, because the number of incidents between you and I mean, what was that 333 triple, the 1111 and 2333s and the double message stuff? That was just like 1 week ago or something. It was like,
Yeah.
it was just like,
And now, by the Bob Marley, the song that we both shared with each other without knowing we shared it with each other is called Three Little Birds.
three.
And I was just reflecting on what you were saying about people, you know, actually seeing UFOs. I've only seen 3, actually, one of which I was inside, one of which was in the clouds, and then another one I saw with a very good friend of mine who is an experiencer. He's seen far more than I have. Like, he's seen orbs and all kinds of stuff. I haven't seen, like, I haven't had that experience. There's 3s are just incredibly prominent in my life as a pattern.
We'll do a video on, or we'll talk about 3s, because you do have the 3s, and you've told me about this numerous times, and today there was the 3s. And when I saw the 3 little birds, and I'm thinking, and I, as I said, I didn't realize, I thought it was the same song, so I just sent it back, but I clipped the actual lyrics out to do the thing about the birds, because I hadn't heard you talking about that.
And did you notice that I sent you exactly the same lyrics?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but I didn't see it when I sent it. That's when I wrote you back and said, quit copying me, because I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's like you took my email and copied it.
Oh, it's so weird. It's so great. It's so much fun. Like, it's just so much fun. I'm really,
and that's where the message sticks. I mean, when they do the synchronicity thing, I mean, you get the message, because you and I were talking about this last night about, you know, the signal and picking up the signal and being in the moment and all this sort of stuff. But this really, I mean, this spelled it right out there. I mean, the Bob Marley song, which I guess I'll have to, well, I can't really incorporate it. I can incorporate the lyrics into it, but I'll have to incorporate that into a lecture, because that was just so bizarre. I can't use the song, but the lyrics are the key thing. And you have the song. So hopefully you can have your little pad, put your little question there at night, have your little pad in the morning, because it appears like, I mean, more stuff is going to happen, and we'll do, you know, moment by moment things as these things happen.
That would be so much fun. I would love to do that. I mean, I hope people are going to be interested in hearing this, because really, you know, it's just fun just to talk to you about it, right? But yeah, I hope people benefit, and I hope it's interesting for other people as well, because for me, it's just crazy. For you, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Well, there's the one you have a meeting. We won't talk about it. We'll keep it secret. But you actually had a meeting that had some other bizarre synchronicities with it. You know, you were going to have a meeting tonight, and the connections there were pretty weird too. And we'll tell that story someday down the road. I mean, that's
it has to unfold first. But
it's pretty weird stuff that was going on there too. So anyway, thanks for the discussion. We'll click it off here, and we'll maybe talk off camera here.
Absolutely, that would be great.